All right, my friends, Brian here with VetteSource on another Friday afternoon, where today I was going to go ahead and make a video for you guys of this 1988 rear suspension that we talked about last week. But as often, like I've talked about in the past, what happens is they sell before I can actually get to tear them down. So this unit's sold. I'm actually delivering this to the buyer today. But I do have a couple more, and one that I'll set aside, so we will get to that tear down of this rear suspension sooner rather than later, I promise, because it looks like I will probably end up tearing down that 86 pace car convertible that I've tried unsuccessfully to get somebody to take on as a project, but since nobody's buying it, we'll go ahead and tear that one down. So anyway, what I decided to do for today was kind of another interesting video of 80s type stuff, trivia related things that pertaining to these C4s, because there's really a lot of material to work with on the C4s with such a long generation run, and all the other generations too, but the C4s, it's something I just had right in front of me. So if you're not familiar, this is actually a Corvette rim from the late 80s, okay? This is a 1 year only rim found on 1988 Corvettes, okay? Now, this is a weird rim. It's an oddball rim. Let's see if you can see on this one here, maybe on this one. A little bit better there. So this is a 16 by 8.5 by 50 millimeter. And the Corvettes in 1988 that came equipped with this rim had 255 50/16 tires installed on them. So this is a 16-inch rim on a 1988 Corvette. Now, if you know a little bit about Corvettes, or you followed me, you'll remember me talking about the 88 Corvettes and above through 96 have a wider track than the 84 through 87s. A lot of that was done to get rid of the what they referred to General Motors as the zero scrub radius, and to reduce the steering wheel fight when you were going down the road, and road inputs and brake inputs. So what they're fancy talking about basically was that Corvettes had a tendency to wander. They were a little more go-kartish in the 84 through 87. They were, if you hit a bump, right, or you hit something on the road, it would jerk the car over and follow that where it needed to go. So the 88 through 96 Corvettes actually solved that with the redesign of the parking brake cable, which again lengthened the rear suspension about 3 inches, I believe, more or less. And the front suspension actually had longer lower control arms, redesign of the upper bolts for the attachment of the upper control arm, and then the spindles were bigger on those. But for some odd reason, the base wheel on a 1988 Corvette was this single triangular design instead of the double. The other wheels, the optional wheels, were the doubles. And they made about 5,000 cars with this rim, and 18,000 cars came with the other rims. And the interesting thing about that is the other rims, the 17-inch rims, were not packaged or optioned separately. So to get those rims, you had to either buy a car equipped with a Z51 suspension, which they called the heavy-duty suspension package, which included, you know, engine oil cooler, heavy-duty radiator, radiator boost fan, heavy-duty suspension, shocks and springs, Bilstein shocks, and then heavy-duty springs. And then you got, that triggered the 17 by 9.5 inch rims. Or you could order the Z52, which is kind of like the Z51 Lite. In fact, the Z51 was referred to as a performance handling package, and the Z52 was referred to as the sport handling package, okay? So the sport handling package, the Z52, was available, and you got the, let me see if I remember this, you got the radiator boost fan, the engine oil cooler, the Delco Bilstein shocks, and then you got the 17 by 9.5 inch rims, but you did not get the heavy-duty suspension or the heavy-duty radiator with that option package. So it was kind of interesting because literally almost 17,000 cars came equipped as a Z51 or Z52. The Z52 was introduced in 1987, and then they only had it for 87 and 88, and they ditched it again because 89 was when they came out with the FX3 suspension, which kind of eliminated some of those individual components and packaged them all together. So anyway, you know, if you look at these rims, these are really quite unattractive. It's no surprise that people didn't really select these rims, because who was going to go in and get a 16-inch rim when they could get the 17-inch rim, which was perceived at that time as being better, the bigger tires. And then honestly, it was just a better design. These are probably my least favorite of all the Corvette rims from that era. I even like the Salad Shooters 84 through 87s better than these. And these just don't... What's odd is after 20 plus years of dealing in parts, I really don't see these. I think I've probably seen 2 or 3 sets of these. And of course, these are manufactured like all the rims from the C4s by... I don't even know how to pronounce the name. It's a manufacturer out of Japan that was making the aluminum rims for Corvette, Chevrolet by then, because they made them for lots of their cars. As a matter of fact, they got a pretty big contract from what I remember. But if you looked around, even now, you will not see many 88 Corvettes with this rim style on them, just because they kind of look awkward. And again, 255, 50, 16-inch tires now are a lot harder to come by than they were back then. So, you know, you can understand why they made almost every car of that generation a Z51 or a Z52 rim. Funny thing about it too is that you know, even when you got around to, when was it, 2009, 2010, 2011, when GM was coming out of the bankruptcy, most of the cars produced were Grand Sports. Not to disparage anybody, but the fake Z06s. So with all the Z06 bodywork package, but not the engine. So, you know, General Motors or Chevrolet, especially with Corvette marketing, has been really good at deciding, you know, what option packages people are going to like and what they think they're going to go for. This, I think I would probably refer to this as a misstep, because it just was not an attractive looking rim. I remember seeing this new, one of the young men in my high school, his aunt let him drive her bright red Corvette to school, 88, and it had these rims on it. I remember thinking, ew, man, where did those come from? I thought at first they were aftermarket rims, until you realize this was just the base rim. Now, this wasn't an option. This was, if you went into the dealership and you ordered a Corvette with no options, this is the rim you got. So I would imagine, having experience with the dealerships way back then and seeing how the ordering process went, that probably the first time one of these arrived off the truck at a dealership and they saw what these look like, they stopped ordering them, because like I said, only about 5,000 Corvettes were produced with these rims. I'd be curious to see the distribution of build distribution, I would say, of whether or not a lot of these were ordered in the very beginning with early build dates, and then towards the end, when they saw they were ugly, they started ordering all the cars with Z51 or Z52 suspensions. Now, the funny thing is, the Z51 and the Z52 suspensions, they weren't crazy expensive, but the Z51 added $1,295 to the base price of the Corvette, and the Z52 added $970. So think about it this way: for $970, you were getting the engine oil cooler, the radiator boost fan, the Delco Bilstein shocks, and the 17 by 9.5 inch tires. And the extra $300 or so with the Z51 package got you the heavy duty suspension, springs, and I think that's actually all the extra the Z51 really came with was the... Oh, you also got the heavy-duty radiator. But, yeah, it's interesting that, you know, a lot of these cars ended up with this simply because it looks like people were just avoiding trying to buy them, you know. They probably didn't want them sitting on the dealer lot. And I can't even imagine how many cars probably came in and the dealers maybe just ordered different rims to put on the cars, because they could have just ordered them over the counter from Chevrolet and installed the cars, because these are interchange with a 16-inch all the time. Now, these won't work on the earlier Corvettes simply because the back spacing's wrong, because anything 88 newer won't fit correctly on the 84 through 87s because the back spacing is different due to the design of the suspension. So you have to have spacers on the earlier Corvettes to make the bigger rims fit, which seems counterintuitive, but that's just the way it works. So, kind of an interesting footnote for C4 Corvette history. like I said, a 1 year only option that they really ditched rather quickly, and something you don't really see very often today. So I think today that's going to wrap us up. Basically, I just wanted to focus on these rims. I was trying to find something that's intriguing, and I came across these and like, hey, this is kind of neat, so I'll pass it along. I'll be back next week. We'll be working on some more stuff there, getting some things done, and hopefully everybody has a good weekend. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch up next time.